Brandel Chamblee joins us now. Brandel, we haven't heard from you yet. 24 hours later, what is your top-line reaction to this news of Brooks back on the PGA Tour?
Well, that was a great day for professional golf. It was a great day for the PGA Tour. I think a really good day for Brooks Koepka, and not a particularly good day for Liv. The exodus was difficult to deal with. You got to have a little bit of sympathy for what Jay Monahan went through. I think he was unfairly criticized for dealing with something so unprecedented. The reintegration, I think, is a little bit easier to do, but nonetheless still difficult. So you got to give Brian Rolapp and his team a lot of credit for what they did. I think Eamon hit the nail on the head, talking about how this did not disrespect the players who didn't leave. You couldn't say yes to Brooks coming back and no to consequences without undermining the credibility of the PGA Tour and players, or excuse me, or an institution that sort of forgets about the cost of the disruption invites repetition. So I think the PGA Tour sent a nice message, and this was about as fair and equitable, but nonetheless significant and unprecedented in the history of sport. But nonetheless, I think it was a great day for the tour and the right penalty.
You've talked over the years, Brandel, about the penalties and sanctions that ought to be applied should this situation arise. Now we're here. Are the penalties sufficient enough in your mind? Because, we can talk a lot about the equity grant, but that's a somewhat speculative number since we don't actually know what that amounts to. There's the charitable contribution, forfeiting any FedEx bonus this year. Does that in total amount to something that's sufficient in your mind?
It's a good question. At first blush, you'd have thought, well, there needed to be some suspending of time on the PGA Tour. He'd have to earn his way back on. But in listening to the PGA Tour, Brian Rolapp and his whole crew, they were listening to fans. Fans wanted him back, and Brooks is one of the more popular players on the PGA Tour. So when he left, he didn't disparage or denigrate the PGA Tour. He wasn't a part of the legal warfare that was brought about by some of those who left. As I recall, and maybe you could tell me if I'm wrong on this, I don't remember him wearing his team uniforms when he was playing in major championships. I think his departure was as amenable as it could have been. So subsequently, he's very popular. So players wanted him back. But the question is, what's the fine? So, yeah, you could say the $5 million charity is only the real punitive fine. But when you start to look at if he just plays a reasonable amount of golf, and that's using the golf he played right before he went to Live, not, those major championship successes from 2017 through 18 and 19. If you just look at that, the cost and equity, and again, this is an estimate, but 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, these are real dollars. It's $50 to $80 million. So that's money that he's not going to receive, but will be redistributed to the PGA Tour players. So he's suffering the consequences while building the equity of other tour players. And then, of course, not receiving any FedEx Cup bonuses. So if he comes back and plays great, you're talking upwards of $10 million, all told somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million. I think that's substantial, unprecedented. And I think it hits the right. It was a tough fairway to hit, but I think Brian Rolapp and his team hit it.
Yeah, a narrow fairway and a narrowly defined category, this returning member program, in terms of the quality of player, just 4 players eligible. Brandel, if you're John Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau, Cameron Smith, and their camps, their teams over the next couple of weeks, how closely are they looking at the language of this returning member program, and how compelling a case is it that one of those 3 players, 2 or maybe 3, will follow Brooks Koepka back to the PGA Tour?
I think it's a great bait. I really do. I would imagine there's some sort of buyer's remorse on their part. They get to these events and they're not competing in events that have any legitimacy or any legacy. Sport is important because it has memory and it has meaning. People only tune in to watch sport if it has meaning, and we've seen it. Live has not galvanized any interest whatsoever, or very small interest. And I think, whether people articulate it or not, or fans articulate it, they communicate it by not watching. And as we're watching Bryson here at Pinehurst, the world was watching here because it has meaning, it has legacy. And they were relegated to playing just 4 of those events. So they can see now, obviously, with what Brooks has agreed to do, that there is a path back, that exodus is reversible. And you know, if they did come back, it would be great. I've said all along, and you know, a lot of people I think misconstrued my opinion about how much I disparaged Liv for disparaging the players. I have said numerous times I understand players leaving. I don't think we should condone it, but we certainly want them back. And we'd love to have Bryson DeChambeau back, and we'd love to have John Rahm back. And I was very curious to see how good Cameron Smith was going to become, and his game fell off precipitously when he went to Live, as did Brooks Koepka's. And you'd like to think that they could come back and be reinvigorated and start playing the type of golf that we all know they can. I hope they do, and perhaps they will. And if they did, it would be even better for the PGA Tour and a knock on Liv, which yesterday certainly was.
What does this say, Brandel, if you're a Joaquin Niemann or Tyrrell Hatton, guys who have proved that they can be competitive outside of the Live ecosystem, but they're being told, at least under the criteria of this program, you're not important enough for us to worry about. You don't meet this criteria. Their fate would seem to hang very much on Liv's fate. They could find themselves competitively homeless, although Tyrrell would certainly have access on the European Tour. But a guy like Joaquin Niemann could find himself on an island pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it, Liv, or excuse me, Eamon. I would say that they would look at yesterday and go, well, there is a path back for us. Maybe it's not the same one that Brooks took, but there is a path back. Those players wouldn't have received $140 million. That's, I believe, the estimate that Brooks received when he went to Live. They wouldn't have received that. So I don't know that the punitive nature of their fines would be consistent with Brooks. They did not have the stature or star power to hurt the game the way Brooks did by leaving. You know, when you look at what Brooks did, and I know he went to play to spend more time with his family and took the money, but you can't argue that him leaving didn't hurt the tour. His credibility made Live to some extent more viable. His stature, to some extent, normalized defection. His success, you would, to some extent, it validated the disruption. You can't say that of Joaquin Niemann or lesser players, even though they're fine players. I would say they have to think there is a pathway back, and it may not be as punitive of what Brooks endured. And I'm sure it sends a message to them. They're probably all thinking, wouldn't it be nice to go play in events that matter, where the world is talking about us, and we can get back on track in the professional game? So I don't just think it sent a message to Bryson, to Rahm, or Cameron Smith. I think it sent a message to other highly accomplished players.
Brandel, quickly, 35 years of age, but oft injured of late. What are your expectations in terms of his production as a returning PGA Tour player?
Well, we've seen him come back, and you know, he's 35. He's certainly got plenty of time to go out there and return to the form that made him a 5-time major champion. So I hope he's reinvigorated. I hope he comes back chomping at the bit to get out there and be one of the top players in the world. You know, he certainly has made the tour in one fell swoop more interesting, at least in the early going. But let's hope he comes back and regains his major championship form and reunites these rivalries, these nice rivalries that he had with Rory McIlroy, amongst others.
Brandel, before we let you go, I've been drawing up a proposal here for Brian Rowlap. It's called the Exiting Member Program. It's eligible to anyone who won in Vancouver on August 30th, 1998. You get unlimited equity in Live. You start immediately in Riyadh. The decision window closes in 5 seconds. Yay or nay? Are you going?
I'm going to say nay on that. I'm not sure I'd be welcome in Riyadh.
I tried America. Brandel, always good to catch up with you.
Nice to talk to both Damon and Eamon. You guys, Happy New Year to both of you.